Be in denial. It is time to face the discontented and misguided among us, to acknowledge the terror within. While it has been conclusively proven that militants born and trained outside the country have been behind many of the vilest terrorist attacks within the country, it is also now startlingly clear that Indians themselves have been responsible for many of the blasts in New Delhi and Mumbai and others in Bangalore, Varanasi, Jaipur, Hyderabad and Pune. Shishir Gupta's Indian Mujahideen, The Terror Within, is a rivetingly written analysis of events over the last 2 decades that tracks the origin and growth of a homegrown terrorist network in India. The Indian Mujahideen has grown out of the ultra-conservative Students' Islamic Movement of India, itself formed in 1977 as the student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami. It has been nurtured by the international jihadist movement, by Pakistan's intel services, intelligence, ISI, and its links with groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Al-Qaeda. This book is the first ever attempt to link up jihadists all over India and trace their linkage with terrorists based in countries like Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia. In the course of his career, Shishir Gupta, a journalist for 19 years, has intensively covered strategic affairs, including wars, insurgencies, terrorism, intelligence, defense, and diplomacy. He is currently editor, Express News. So, without further ado, I'd like to begin today's program by asking the Honorable Ministers and Shri Arun Jaitley to officially release the book.
The Home Minister of India, Honorable Shri Arun Jaitley, Leader of Opposition, Members of Parliament, Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I begin by paying homage to the 26 Indians who lost their lives on July 13, 2011 during one of the many serial bomb blasts that have racked Mumbai over the past 2 decades. The toll in Mumbai bomb attacks since 1992-93 stands at some 708 persons killed, with another 2,285 persons injured. And this is Mumbai alone, making it unfortunately the favorite target of terrorists proliferating in the subcontinent. The casualty figure multiplies exponentially if we add other bomb blasts in the Indian hinterland over the past decade. Before I focus on the scourge of terrorism against India, I would like to briefly delve into my book, Indian Mujahideen, The Enemy Within. The book charts the course of homegrown jihad and the impact of Islamic fundamentalism and foreign funding, particularly from Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Gulf, on the section of already radicalized Sindhi youth in India. It joins the dots as far as the terrorist incidents of the past decade are concerned, with detailed insight into the foreign support given to radicalized local Indian youth through testimonies of arrested terrorists like David Coleman Hadley, Khwaja Amjad Sheikh, and Sarfraz Nawaz. The book gives insight into Abdul Rahman Saeed's so-called Karachi project, a joint venture of Pakistani ISI and Lashkar-e-Toiba with the objective of turning Indian youth against their own country. It stresses on the need for proper investigations of the past terrorist attacks in order to bring real culprits to book. While I leave it to you to read the book and draw your own conclusions, today the threat of homegrown terror is very real, with the germination of self-help and self-finance modules in the country. At this point, I would like to highlight the asymmetric threat posed by these non-state players, more than often aided and abetted by neighboring governments in the subcontinent to India's internal security and economic growth. As the threat is high, the Indian response needs to be utterly swift and sharp. Jama Masjid firing on September 19, 2010, Shitla Ghat blast in Varanasi on December 6, 2010, recovery of an unexploded device outside Delhi High Court on May 25th, and now Mumbai, all point to the urgency of the situation, as the needle of suspicion is towards extremists within the country, albeit with outside support at some stage or the other. After a near calm of almost 2 years, post-26/11, the tornado modules in India stirred up last year, and in Mumbai showed their regrouped capability to deliver a lethal strike. Much has been written and discussed and debated about the steps required to neutralize terrorism in India. the security agencies and dedicated state police units are on jobs 24/7 to ensure that the Indian hinterland remains insulated from the chaos in the troubled neighborhood. On July 31st, 2011, the Foreign Policy magazine brought out its annual list of failed states. Except for Bhutan, which is at number 50, it is not surprising that all our neighborhood are in the top 30 list, with Afghanistan at number 7 and Pakistan at number 12. Rather than getting into the jugglery of growth rates and GDP figures, the moot point here is that we must not get dragged into the vortex, as the same magazine even puts China in the danger zone, and us marginally better as a borderline state. Internal security management is a mix of collating, analyzing, combating short and long-term security threats, as well as instant decision-making with no margin of error. The more we practice counter-terror response, the less we will bleed in future. On December 23, 2009, Honorable Home Minister P. Chidambaram had unveiled a new security architecture by adding more teeth and muscle to our counter-terror apparatus. I will not elaborate on this except to say that hardly any discussion or decision has taken place in the past 20 months on the proposed National Counterterrorism Center. Only in politics and not in internal security, no decision can be a decision. While our police forces have started the process of modernization post 2611 with the acquisition of latest weaponry, software and security gadgets, I would request them not to forget the basics. Despite the advent of standoff and standalone technical inputs, perhaps the security agencies and police should not forget that it is the old mukhbir in forward system that got Osama bin Laden and not US Predators and Tomahawk missiles. We cannot get the terrorist if we do not know what's happening on the ground zero, and for that, the beat constable has to be on the job and not on the mobile phone. We also need more footfalls on the ground, as 2007 estimates show that there are only 117 police personnel per 1 lakh of Indian population, as compared to 328 in US and 252 in UK. Only 576 per lakh figure in Jammu Kashmir matches the police figure of 559 of police officers per 1 lakh of population. In simple terms, more footfall means human intelligence, which becomes crucial in times when terrorists use voice over internet protocol phones and internet dialing services run by global mafias to avoid technical detection. This, besides empowerment of dedicated anti-terror units in the states, should do the job, as there is a strong need for the states to reassure the law enforcement agencies and officers that they are being backed for legitimate investigations without any fear of being chased by activists or NGOs to death. But the fight on ground zero or within should be our last firewall against the marauding terrorists. Our actual battle lies in the capability to neutralize the threat outside our land and sea borders, so that we do not suffer the humiliation of being targets of cheap fertilizer bombs in crowded streets of Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, or Varanasi. To ensure that, we must revive our capabilities outside our land borders, or else we'll have to wait for some David Coleman Hadley to get caught by some foreign agency to understand the machinations and the bloody conspiracies going across the borders. The fact is that we just do not have enough information about terror conspiracy being hatched against India and the neighborhood and in the littoral states. This should actually be our first line of defense, and we should not confuse intelligence with diplomacy. Lastly, even though I may sound cliched, but we must stop playing politics with internal security. As it is, the task of making billion plus safe is a humongous job. This gets seriously complicated if politicians start playing investigators and fraud the security agencies and police on denominational lines. Investigations of terrorist incidents on this task, as the strings are normally attached outside the Indian borders. We need to properly investigate the terrorist attacks and be able to bring the guilty to book rather than pronouncing the guilty within the minutes of an attack. Thank God this time in Mumbai, we refrained from doing this, albeit the politicians still refuse to zip it. While it is important that internal security be hotly debated in Parliament, as it was in Rajya Sabha today, it should be best avoided for scoring points on electoral politics front. One must remember, neither Kargil nor 2611 attacks paid electoral dividends for the opposition. With the left extremists now showing signs of being penetrated by anti-India forces, there is enough on the internal security plate for its managers. Denominational politics will only make their task tougher and strengthen the hands of terrorists. Thank you very much.